Hello, and welcome to another live lesson with me, Matt Stead. Today we're going to really delve into soloing. This is somewhat of what we're going to do today is a slight repeat of something we did, I think probably a year or two ago. But the reason I wanted to look at it now is that a lot of you guys have been doing my Kanikapila-ists regularly on every Monday. And sometimes one of the queries I get off people is you'd like to solo, but you'd really like to learn to solo all over the fretboard. That's one of the things. And this is going to allow you to do that. And the other query I often get is sometimes people get a little bit bored of soloing using pentatonics. So we'll talk a bit about why we use pentatonics, what they're good for. Then we'll talk about some of the drawbacks of just using pentatonics, and then we'll explore these scales in a lot more detail. And basically, by the end of this session, with a lot of home learning, you should be able to take away the sheets that I've given you, and you should be able to solo all over your fretboard, all over the C, E and A strings all over the place, which is hopefully really empowering and really exciting to you guys. And it all uses something called modes, which I'll explain in just a minute. Hi Ted, good to hear from you. Hope you're doing well. How is it in Canada? I know Karen was saying it's warmed up out there now, so hopefully we've got two Canadians in the house. Hopefully you're both not melting too much, but you're no longer in the snow, which would be good. Just a couple of things. Hi Wayne, hi Rebecca. Just a couple of things to remind everyone about. So we do have another live lesson planned in 2 weeks. I just realised I forgot to upload the photo to my computer, so I'm just going to see if I can send it over now. This one's going to be slightly controversial. You'll see why in just a second. Let me just bring it up here and then pop it on the screen. We're going to do this. Don't learn strum patterns. Now that sounds really kind of hyperbolic and a bit over the top and whatnot. But actually, rather than it being a negative thing, we're going to go over simple ways to make your strumming sound really beautiful. So if you've ever got hung up on, am I on a down or an up, down, and you feel really robotic, this is to free you from all that and show you how you can have a really, really effective strumming style without having to worry about patterns at all. And this is going to be 2 weeks' time. All right, so that should be really, really lovely. Don't forget, we've got our next Melodic Mondays coming up this Monday. So if you want to learn melody playing, we're going to look at a beautiful piece called Out on the Ocean, which I'm really excited about. It's a lovely Irish reel in 6/8 timing. Then I'm off to Spain. You guys are welcome to join me on my awesome Ukulele Academy. I think there's still a place left if anyone wants to come. So get in touch with me or Matt Parkin if you're interested. I'm off to Spain middle of next week to go and have a load of ukulele fun in the sun. Here's some details on here as well. So hi Andrani. Oh good, the ice is off the lake. It's starting to melt. Hi Barbara, hi Andrani. Good stuff, fantastic. Okay, I think that's everything I needed to tell you about as far as I can remember. Oh, there is one more thing. There's a new Beatles lesson as well, The Long and Winding Road, which I'm really excited about. I went to town on this one, I really did. So you've got a full chord melody version of that to learn on the Beatles course as well, which is exciting. Hi Karen, I hope you're doing well. Okay, so let's have a look at what we're going to look at today in detail. I'm off to Spain, yay! The rain in Spain falls mainly on the plane. Hopefully it's not. We're not going to have any rain, but you never know. So let's have a look. So first off in the sheet, we've got our first scales that you probably ever would have learned in terms of soloing, and these are your pentatonic scales. And the pentatonic scales, just literally in terms of the notes that we have, it's basically the C major scale, which we're going to look at in more detail in a minute, or any major scale in fact. It just happens to be that I'm playing the one in C. And it's that scale, but we take away the 4th scale degree, that's an F, and the 7th scale degree, that's a B. So when we do a C major pentatonic, we're playing C, 2nd fret for D, E, 3rd fret for G, A, and then that's it. But we can do another C as well here to finish it off. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then we go back to the start. Now, why do I teach that to students as the first scale, and why is that something that we do a lot in Kanikapila? Well, more than anything, it's a safe bet, basically. So there are no notes in this 5-note scale, the C major pentatonic, for example, that clash with any of the chords that come up in that key. So you could literally play any of these notes over and over and they'll sound fabulous. I'll give you an example. Hopefully this is going to work. I prepared some backing tracks earlier, but they're playing up a bit. Let's see if this works. Let me know if the sound comes through on this, guys. Let's just give it a second. Ah, yeah, there we go. It's just been a bit slow. So if I play any of those notes from the C major pentatonic, let's turn the volume up a bit. They sound great, and even if I stay on one for a long time, none of those, right? Thanks, Karen. None of those sound bad, basically. In effect, there's none of those notes that clash with any of the chords. But there are 2 notes in the C major scale that do. And the notes that clash with certain chords are the F note and the B note. And that's why we take them out for the pentatonic. And if I play that backing track again and I just keep playing B, you'll hear it clash with some chords. It's not sounding great, is it, over that C? And that's because it's only half a step away from a note in the C chord. So this B note hates being played at the same time as this C note. And we can try that. If I just keep hitting this B, you guys strum a C at home. If you've got your uke, strum a C. And it should clash. Doesn't sound very nice, right? And it's a similar thing with this one. When I play an F, any chord that contains an E, such as this C chord, it will clash with this one. So if you play a C whilst I play that, it won't sound very good, right? It would just sound a little bit kind of, yeah, a little bit clashy to our ears, basically. We don't like it. No worries, Victoria. Good to see you. I forgot to say at the start, if anyone's got any questions with any of this as we're going along, shout them out in the community chat, because I love questions. Sometimes I forget to tell you stuff. Sometimes we go down off on a tangent, and it tends occasionally to be a really useful tangent. So do feel free to ask questions as we go. But that's the major pentatonic, and that's why it exists. And one of the complaints that a lot of people make about modern music, not necessarily me, but lots of people do, is that even singers sing using pentatonic notes because they know that they're not going to clash with the backing track. But it means that music can sound a little bit formulaic that way because you've only got the same 5 notes, and it's kind of a bit safe, basically. So if we use a 7-note scale, we're taking a risk, but it can sound really, really great because we've got those extra notes that had extra richness, basically. Now, the brilliant thing about it is, as long as you resolve a note, you can't really go wrong. What do I mean by that? So, for instance, if I'm playing through this scale, I'll do the C major scale now. That's just C, D, 2nd fret, E, 1st fret F, 3rd fret G, open A, and then 2nd fret B, 3rd fret C. Now if I play this scale with a backing track, there are certain notes that shouldn't sound nice, like this F and B against certain chords. And if I hang on them, they sound awful. But if I play through them and then resolve them to the note that's next to it, so for instance, playing a B to a C, it can sound really nice. And playing an F to a G can sound really nice. I'll show you what I mean. Let's put that backing track again. I'll do B and C now. If I play it on its own, sounds awful, right? But resolve it, sounds great. Same with F. Sounds horrible, but resolve it. And by using the full 7 notes in our scale, basically we're adding richness to our playing. There's more variety. It sounds really sweet and really, really great. Okay. Now, there's only one problem with just knowing your major scale in one place, or even 2 places. Let's do it just to remind ourselves. I think somewhere here I've got the C major scale written down. If not, I'll go through it. Yeah, let's just ignore the name. See where it says C Ionian over here? Ignore the name Ionian. I'll explain what the heck that means in just a minute. But these red dots, these are just your C major scale. So again, just to remind, I know most of you know this already. It's what they say, teaching grandma to suck eggs or whatever. But let's just go over it just in case. So the squares just mean the root. So we have an open C. 2nd fret for D. Open E, 1st fret for F, 3rd fret for G, open A, 2nd fret for B, and 3rd fret for C, like that. So that's your C major scale. Now, if I kind of play with just this scale, and I'll play that backing track again, it's okay and it works. But I kind of feel like I'm just going up and down a scale a bit. And I also feel like I'm stuck in one part of the fretboard. So what we can do is we can extend that out. And often what we do is we play notes along the A string because those are the ones that we remember, right? Those are the easiest to remember. So regular Kanikapila-ists, I've invented that word, whether you like it or not, will know that I'm often getting used to do the A minor pentatonic, which is the same as the C major pentatonic, just by hitting an open A, the 3rd fret, and then all the dots on your ukulele. So you can try this if you like. I'll play the backing track for a while. I'll play along and then I'm going to stop and you guys play along to it. And first off, I want you to use any of those red dots there. And then when you've got bored of that, see if you can extend it a little bit along the A string. And it really is as easy as just hitting the dots. Literally any dot that you have on your ukulele will work along the A string. So I'll do it first and then you guys copy back. I'll play the backing track again from about here. Here we go. I feel like I want to break out now. And I come back down. You have a go, guys. So maybe just try those red notes at first. Then if you feel brave enough, start moving up that A string. Keep it going. fantastic. There we go. Just pause there for a bit. So that's basically playing along to a backing track in the key of C. I forgot to actually, I told you I forget stuff. I forgot to tell you actually what that backing track was. If anyone's interested, I'll put these backing tracks on my Dropbox so that you can download them and play along yourself too, because we're going to use a few of these through the video. They're just backing tracks that I've created on something called Band in a Box, where you can put in chords and it comes up with a kind of backing track for you. And the chords that we're playing was C, ba da da da, G, da 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 da, A minor, ba da ba ba, and F. So really common chords that are in the key of C, and that's why what you're soloing with would have sounded nice against that. Let me know if you've got any questions, as I say, and I'll ping them over. Karen, just remind me, because you know my memory is absolutely atrocious at the moment. If you message me, Karen, and just remind me, I'll stick them in the Dropbox and I'll post it on Facebook, so everyone's got the backing tracks, because they're really, really useful. So those are the scales that we generally use to solo with. It's those are the ones that we tend to use: minor pentatonics and major pentatonics. So let's have a look. Yeah, it's cool, isn't it, Barbara? I spend a lot of time. It's a program called Band in a Box. I really, really love it, and I spend a lot of time just creating backing tracks because it's so much fun to solo over. But if I will provide these in Dropbox. But if you get bored with my tracks, if you ever want to just practice soloing to a particular key, just go into YouTube and type, say, C major backing track, and you'll find tons of them. It's really amazing, free resources that are out there now. Okay, so what the heck are modes, and why am I teaching them to you? So before the kind of classical period, when we think of Mozart and Beethoven onwards, songwriters, I could use the word song because folk writers did this, but composers tended to use modes to create pieces of music. If you think of a scale is just a certain amount of notes, 5 in a pentatonic, 7 in a major scale, a certain amount of notes played in a particular order that sound nice to our ears. They're a human construct. Birds don't sing using modes or major scales or minor scales. They just do whatever feels natural. So it's like an arbitrary thing. And back in the day, we used to use these 7 modes a lot to compose music with, and each of the modes has a kind of a certain flavour. Like the Ionian mode, which is basically the equivalent of our major scale, is really kind of bright and happy. Then you get the Dorian mode, which has a real kind of melancholic feel. Now, if any of you have used my Kanikapila-ists before, where we talk a lot about chord personalities, this is a very similar concept, using notes instead of chords. It's a similar thing. And so that's how people used to compose. They would use these modes, and they're named after either places. I got this wrong once because I said it's all the Greek islands, and it's not actually quite true. They're named after places or populations, so groups of ethnic people. And that's because the earliest use really was going back to Greek times. So we have like the Ionian, the Dorian, the Phrygian, the Lydian. It's all named after places and peoples of that area. Now, modes can be used to compose with. They can be used to even create unusual chord voicings, which is really, really lovely. But we're going to use them for a very specific reason today, and that's to extend our soloing out in one particular key. And it will become more and more apparent as we go. You'll understand as we go. Thanks, Karen, by the way. As we go. Now, what are the modes and how are they created? So basically, let's come in on close camera. The Ionian mode, which is like our kind of stepping off point, if you like, it's like the basis of all the other modes. The Ionian mode, which is the first one, is literally just the same as a major scale. So that C major scale we're just doing, you can think of that as the Ionian mode. So the C Ionian mode is a C major scale. The D Ionian mode is the D major scale. And then it carries on like that. The E Ionian mode is the E major scale. Okay, now what's interesting is the way we derive the rest of the modes is by playing a scale, such as the C major scale, and starting from a particular note. So let's just again go back and play that C major scale. It's the Ionian one on this diagram. Yeah, the red notes. Now I want you to play that exact same scale, but I want you to start it from this D note. Sorry, I'm going to do that again. I went wrong. Daft Matt, sorry. So we're going D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. Okay. I'm going to do that again. So C Ionian, just the red dots. D Ionian, exactly the same scale, but the red dots still, but start from the second one, this D here. Now, did you notice something kind of interesting? That when we start from a D, that gives us the D Dorian. Don't worry about the rest of the diagrams for now. I'll explain that in a minute. But notice when I play that C major scale and I start from a D, it feels different because the intervals are different. If you think about it, when we start a major scale, we have a whole step from C to D, and then we have another whole step from D to E. Okay, but when we start it from D, look, we've got D to E as a whole step, but E to F is only a half step in the chromatic scale. So the intervals change, so you get a different feel. And if you don't believe me, this is the cool thing, right? Just have a listen to them. If I play up and down the C major scale, and I do the same on the Dorian, which is just starting from D. Did you notice it has a feel of slight tension? It might be hard to pick up. Some of the others will be really obvious, but it has a kind of a slight tension to it and a minor quality that the C major scale doesn't have. And basically that's how all the scales, the different modes are made. So if you have a look at the E Phrygian mode, well, if you think about it and really analyse those notes, it's the C major scale starting from E, isn't it? It's just the C major scale starting from E. And we can do that together just by hitting this E note here, F note, G, A, B, C, D at the 5th, E at the 7th. Okay, so that's a C major scale starting from E. E, F, G, A, B, C, D, E. And again, if I play up and down that, it has a darker quality again, doesn't it, then? So that's how people used it. So basically in the olden days, if someone wanted to write a dark song, they would use the Phrygian mode. If they wanted to, what they would refer to as a bright song, we would think of as a happy song, they would use the Ionian. So each of these modes was like a personality. It's like a scale with a personality that they would use. And you still get it. Oh, just a second. My computer's playing up. Apparently my disk is getting full. I don't know why it's doing that because I'm not recording, but give me a second. I'm just going to delete a couple of documents. I'll tell you what I'll do, just so that I'm not just you're not just seeing me play about my computer. I'll play the backing track again, and you can have a little noodle around with the C major scale. Practice your soloing a little bit. I'll just play the backing track now, and I'll just sort out these files. It'll only take me a second. Sorry, guys. Will only be a sec. Okay, I'm nearly done. Keep needling away. That should do it. Just empty my bin. Okay, thanks for that, guys. Hopefully you got a chance to have a little noodle there. Sorry, guys. My computer came up with a thing saying it was running out of memory, so I just deleted a load of files to make that work. Karen's just saying, ding ding. I didn't realise that a scale in a mode still has 7 notes. I was thinking that if it started on the G, it would stop at the high C. Yeah, no, you just shift the whole thing along, Karen. So the mode basically has 7 notes, basically. And as I was saying before, let's just have a look. Rebecca's just asking, how do the melodies have a sound in different modes if they have the same notes? Since melodies don't play the scale in the order. This is really interesting. I don't know if Shell is watching, but Shell asked a similar question about this. There we go. Greek started with groups of 4 notes together. There you go. So different scales, but I guess maybe that was a start of it. So yeah, Rebecca, Shell was asking me a similar question to this on email. So how come, even though they're the same notes, they have a different flavour? It's interesting, right? Because even though we don't necessarily start and end on the root and just play up and down a scale, we do, if you think of that scale as a ladder and the intervals between those, the rungs on the ladder are different. When we solo, we do tend to go up and down a lot. So if you think about it, any melody, it's very unlikely that you'll get a melody that does. It just sounds weird to our ears, right? Our ears generally don't like big intervals unless it's like something obvious like an octave, a high C. A high C up here to a low C, for instance, or a C to a G. But generally our ears don't like those big weird intervals. It sounds a bit weird. So even kind of melodies, I'm trying to think of a famous melody. Let me think. Yeah, something really simple like Frère Jacques. Whoops. So on and so forth. Notice that it goes up and down. Up the scale and back down, isn't it? Sorry. And then we go up. There it is. Had to really think about that. And that's the same with most melodies. Some really famous ones that really stick to the scale. Joy to the World is just the C major scale backwards. And all sorts of melodies, no matter what the melody is, it does tend to go up and down scales. Not literally just C, D, E, F, but it might go C, D, F, and then back to C. But generally there's a lot of going up and down. So it does give you a different flavour, which is interesting. And you can really hear it if I play the start of a mode. So have a listen to this. I'm going to play some notes from the E Phrygian mode. And I'm going to get you guys to shout out in the comments. Obviously, there's a slight delay. What kind of music does this remind you of? I'm really exaggerating it. That's why it sounds a bit weird. Sorry, I'm doing it terribly as well. I mean, that's a classic one there, that E to F. It has a kind of a really interesting quality because it's a half note. And that particular way of playing the Phrygian mode, that's associated with a particular type of music. Indron is partly right. It has that kind of medieval, almost like a dark quality to it. But that's because in medieval music we used to use these modes, so it'll probably sound quite familiar to medieval music. I'll give you the kind of answer just in case it might have even been my terrible play and I don't often use this mode. But it's the Phrygian mode is used a lot in flamenco music. Kind of imagine that kind of. And you get a lot of those three notes together. Like I say, I'm not very apt at playing that one. But for the Phrygian mode is used a lot with flamenco music. And because we go up and down those modes, it does keep the flavour of a different feel. And basically each of the modes, if I go back to, I think it's the third page in your sheets, let me see if I can find it. It's page, here we go. Page 6. This is from my reference book. This is from the first edition, so it has a spelling error in it. I'm ever so sorry. I just copied this out of my book and I forgot to use the most recent edition. That where it says Mixolydian here, it should say Mixolydian. The E should be an O, but just pretend it's spelt right. Okay. So each of these modes has a different flavour, and you can think of them as like the ones that are very similar to a major mode and the ones that are similar to a minor mode. So if you have a look at the first line, that's just our C major. Okay. And then the Lydian mode has a sharpened fourth. I'll do it up here as F Lydian. Sorry, I was doing the F major scale without thinking. Did you hear that note really stand out? And that's because our ears are expecting to hear the F major scale when I go up it, but it hits it. And this mode, the F Lydian, is thought of as one of the brighter modes. It's like a major scale, only the fourth is sharpened. And that was used in The Simpsons. Da, 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 da. Again, another example. Notice the notes are going up and down the scale a bit. Da, 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 da. So even though it's not a pure scalar going up and down, it's still, we have that up and down movement, so you get the feel of those intervals, which is basically how it works. So the Lydian has a very bright sound. Mixolydian has a kind of a bluesy sound. It's used a lot in blues music. And then you get the other ones are based on the minor mode. The Aeolian is just the natural minor. The Dorian is like the natural minor, but with the sixth not flatted. And you see the Phrygian is like the minor, but with the second flatted. Now, don't want you to worry too much about this at the moment. It is interesting, and it's a fascinating bit of musical history going into these modes and how they exist and why they exist and everything. But we're going to use them, as I said, for a specific purpose, and this is the magic. let's go to this page next. Okay, so what I want you to do is just play your C major scale using the red dots. Let's give it a go. 2, 3, 4. C, D, E, F, G, A, B, C. Okay. Now, here's where the clever bit comes in, and you have to really get your thinking hats on just to really soak this in. If we know that all these different modes are derived from the C major scale and they're all the same notes as the C major scale, that must mean that we can use them to play the C major scale all over the fretboard. So what we're going to do now is we're going to play the D Dorian scale, which is just the C. It is literally the C major scale, but starting from D and going to D. But instead of playing it like we would play it originally, just going from this D here, and then playing all the notes in the same place as we would, and adding this one, we're going to play exactly those notes, but we're going to do these green ones here. It's the same notes I just played, but for instance, rather than playing E and F here, we're playing them up here. Same notes, see? So we end up with this. Now stick with me, guys, because even if you think, oh my gosh, this is like hurting my brain, I don't like, you know, like Rebecca was quite rightly, it was a great question saying, why do they sound different? When we get into changing them between chords later, you're going to hear the difference and you're going to hear it really clearly. So just kind of go with me and humour me if you're not quite sure at the moment. It will work, I promise. Okay, so let's just do the D Dorian. We're going to reset our fingers, so rather than being here, let's put our first finger on the 2nd fret of the C string. Let's use our 2nd finger here, or you can do 3rd if you're more comfortable. 4th fret, little finger 5th fret, either your 1st or 2nd here, 3rd fret of the E string, 5th fret, 2nd fret of the A string, 3rd fret of the A string, and then finally the 5th fret to finish. So it will look and sound like this. Okay. Now, what has that done already? What has that helped us with? If you can think of this as a shape, okay? If you can just start to remember these shapes and think of them in different ways. So this one, I kind of think of it as kind of like a minor scale, but the 6th isn't flattened, as I said on the last one. But just think of it as a shape. It's kind of easy to remember once you get the hang of it. So we've got a big gap, little gap. Then we've got these two notes, which is similar to so many scales. And then we've got little gap, or no gap if you prefer, and big gap. Okay, so you soon get used to that shape. Now that's brilliant, because already we can play our C major scale in open position, and we can play the same notes up here, which is really, really fantastic. So purely just from a way of opening up the fretboard, it's really, really cool because it allows you to play all over the place, right? Let's extend it out further. Just go with me. You haven't got to remember these because you've got these sheets forever, right? You can do these anytime. Oh, Shell, I was really hoping you were there. I wasn't sure if you were there or not. Shell said, thanks for answering my question. Read the same notes in the major and the relative minor. Is it possible that the brain solos differently depending on whether one chooses major or minor relative? Yes, is the short answer, Shell. Like I said, quite often what the brain will do, because you want a particular feel, is you'll solo with certain parts of the scale, the ones that really highlight if it's major or minor. So if I'm soloing using the C major scale, I might use the standard notes which only have one half step in, when I do the Phrygian, I might concentrate on those notes because I have that half step at the start. And maybe these. And that gives it a darker sound. Can you get that, guys? Tell me if you can hear it. It's kind of interesting. Does this sound kind of dark to you? And this. Versus. I'll do it again. So hopefully, let me know. I'd be really interested if you could let me know in the comments. But I think the E Phrygian, when you play sections of it, it has a dark feel to it. It kind of reminds me, like Indrani says, it has the medieval flavour as well. But it makes me think of like Spain and flamenco. Hola! You know, all that kind of intense dancing, which is really cool. And Rebecca, you've kind of summed up what we're going to be doing. It's a cool way to learn the fretboard at the same time, which is really fantastic thing to do. So let me just see. Wayne was just saying I follow this on the fretboard, Dorian, but I'm confused by your chart on page 6, which shows the 3rd and 7th as flatted notes. Let me just see page 6 so I can see exactly what So 3rd and 6th as flatted. Which diagram is that on, Wayne? Just so I can see. It's the Dorian, and it's shown. Yes. Yeah, I see. So the 3rd is, yeah. Don't worry too much about this diagram for now, but I will explain it, Wayne, since you've asked, and I did put it in there, so I should explain it. The flatted 3rd only applies, and again, this isn't what we're going to be using today, so don't let this hurt anyone's brains, but the flatted 3rd only really applies if you're doing the D Dorian, so not the C Dorian. So if you think of the D Dorian, we basically have a first, and then normally in the D major scale we would have the 3rd down here, but in the D Dorian the 3rd is flatted. But remember, we're not going to think about things as changing keys. We're just going to keep this in the key of C. So in effect, it's all notes in the key of C for today. All right. You can, I'll show you later on if we get time how you can transfer this to every different key, because that's really powerful as well. No worries, Robin. Don't worry. Remember, you can always watch this back from the start. That's not a problem. Not a problem at all. Let's just do one more and then we'll play some backing tracks and I'll get you using these, and I'm going to show you something really powerful with them. So next up we've got E Phrygian. So this one starts from the 4th fret of the C string. Yeah, you got it, Wayne. This one starts, yeah, think of it in relation to D major, Wayne. Yeah. So this one starts at the 4th fret of the C string. Then we've got a half step straight away. That's what gives it that flamenco-y feel. Then we go up to the 7th fret. We come back here. I'll often use my first finger here to the 5th fret of the E string, up to 7. Another half step up to 8. Down to 5 here and 7 here. So you can just play through it from start to finish. It'll sound like this. So we call that the E Phrygian. Okay. Now that has, like I say, if you play it up and down, it has a certain flavour which is really, really nice. But again, you can just think of that as a series of notes. And then if you think about it with the C Ionian, the D Dorian and the E Phrygian, look at how much of the fretboard you've covered. You're getting up really high to the 8th fret already, which is absolutely fantastic. So that's how it's really powerful. And as I say, there are 7 of these modes. I've included them all, but I don't want to go through every single one today because that's literally just telling you where to put your fingers along dots, and that's only so useful. But what I am going to show you, if you stick with me, is how useful and how great it can sound and the reasons why. If you're wondering, by the way, why it goes C, E, and then D, G, so they're not in order, it's just because they overlap otherwise. The D Dorian overlaps with the C Ionian, and if it's a nightmare to show that with dots, it all looks really awkward and rubbish. So that's why they're in this order. All right, it should go C, D, E, F, G, but I've put them in this order just so you can see them in different places. All right, and we've got the Lydian, we've got the Aeolian, which is way up at the 9th fret, and even something called the Locrian, which is up at the 11th and 12th fret. Now, here's something brilliant, which I hope is brilliant right away. You don't need to learn all these modes. It's a great thing to do, but you don't need to learn them all straight away, for sure. What I would do is concentrate on a few of these modes that are most useful for learning the fretboard and for specific functions, and I'll show you. Okay, what we're going to do is we're going to start with the D Dorian, which is on this page, the green dots, and the G Mixolydian. Remember, again, I know this is really hard to think about, but these are still all notes from the C major scale, just played in a different order. That's really, really important to remember, okay? But 2 shapes, right? 2 shapes. We got this one here, D Dorian. Have a go at playing that up and down. Yeah, let's just do it together first. So D, 4th fret, 5th fret, 3rd fret of the E string, 5th fret, 2nd fret of the A string, 3rd fret, and 5th fret to finish. That's D, E, F, G, A, B, C, D. And if you get confused which note's which and you want it to help you learn the fretboard, just remember that it's the alphabet. There's no sharps or flats. As long as you start on the right one, D, just count up the alphabet. E, F, G. Then we have to start from A again. A, B, C, D. So you can start to learn those notes up there. Now, what I want to do to make it fun is let's use that backing track I was playing and just have a go at going up and down the scale, but then see if you can make some kind of rudimentary little solo. Something like this. I'll go up and down first. And then I might take a few of the notes, do a little solo. Doesn't have to be complicated, the notes on the A string. Okay. Maybe notes on a C string. Middle. You have a go, have a little noodle. And rest. Okay, let's just pause the backing track a sec. Okay, let's learn the G Mixolydian together. So that's way up here, starting at the 7th fret of your C string. Then we're going to go to the 9th fret. We come back to the 7th fret of the E string, 8th fret, 10th fret, and then we come back down here, 7, 8, 10. Now, because we're starting from G, our ears are expecting to hear the G major scale, which sounds like this. But notice, we have that note. That's the note which makes it sound interesting and sticks out. And that's why when you pass up and down this scale when you're soloing, it doesn't sound like C major scale, even though it is technically, the notes are there. But it's really, really cool, right? That's a great bit of advice from Shell. Sometimes when he's learning the notes on the fretboard, he'll play a note on the fretboard and look at his ukulele tuner to check what note it is, to check he's right. Fantastic. That's a great idea, Shell. I like that. So what we're going to do now, I'm going to play exactly the same backing track, and I want you to try playing up and down that Mixolydian scale. You can just play up and down to start with, and then you can start to noodle with a solo. The great thing about the Mixolydian scale, look, is that the notes on the E and A string are symmetrical. So you can really memorise this one really easily by just doing these symmetrical notes. And then you've got 2 more up here. All right. So if I play it up and down, you don't have to do it in time with me, but it might sound something like this. And so on and so forth. And then I could do a little solo. You have a go. One, 2, 3, 4, and chill. Well done, everyone. Okay. Now, this next bit, I'm really hoping if you guys have stuck with me for nearly an hour, this is where it's like, and it's really exciting. And if anyone left early, they missed this best bit because this is amazing, right? Have you ever wondered how guitarists and ukulele players are able to solo all over their fretboard without really thinking about it? And you think, like, how are they finding all those notes? Like, I can do a major scale. Yep, I know that. That's easy enough. I can play the pentatonic along the A string like we do in Kanikapila. But how do I become one of those people that can solo all over the fretboard? Well, if you remember these 2 scales, you just did. It's amazing, right? Because these are derived from the C major scale. So in the key of C, you can play any of these notes all over the fretboard. And it works. And it'll take a while, but if you start to learn these patterns, you can play any song that's in the key of C and you can solo all over the fretboard up to like the 12th fret, which is like totally amazing, right? So what I might do is just to illustrate that, yeah, lots of practice. But it doesn't, honestly, if you think about it, it's only 2 scales, right? It's only 2 scales, so it doesn't take that long to learn. And you can do it. I'll prove it to you. I'm not a particularly brilliant soloist. It's not my forte, but I will give it a go. I'll do some D Dorian and then G Mixolydian. So I'm going to noodle about the D Dorian. Now I go to G Mixolydian. to G mixed leading, and then just really free. Combine it with the C major scale. And so on and so forth, right? But there's no good you guys sat watching me noodle. Now it's your turn. You got this. Have a little go. Again, it could be like totally overwhelming. Ted, yeah, sure, absolutely. You should have a PDF version that you can download, and then you can print those off from there. So I know, Ted, you're a member of the site. So if you go to member sheets and then find the document there, you can download it and then print it off straight from your computer. So you haven't got to look at the screen the whole time. If you're not sure, Ted, let me know and I'll just send you the PDF. I'll just email it to you and then you can print it off from there. Okay, let's do the backing track. Now you guys have a go. Now you might be a little bit overwhelmed, but you don't have to do all these dots. Maybe just do the dots on the E and A string. That's covering a lot of the fretboard. Give it a go. Just have a little play around, guys. No worries, Ted. Just a little bit more. Now, guys, this is, how cool is that? I mean, come on, 2 scales and you can solo all over the fretboard. That's amazing. I remember when I learnt this for the first time, because I used to be quite intimidated by other ukulele players and guitarists that could just do that and noodle all over. And I remember the first time I did it, I never swear, you guys know this, but genuinely, I was like, holy crap. Like, I can play all over the fretboard. It's so exciting. I can do what all those other guys do. 2 scales, absolutely amazing, right? So just get those really under your fingers and work really, really hard on getting those under your fingers, and you'll be able to play all over the fretboard in the key of C. Now, Rebecca, this is a brilliant question that I've been asked before, and the answer's kind of nice and kind of horrible at the same time. So Rebecca's asking, do you think about the shapes or do you think about the notes on the fretboard because you know the fretboard? So when I was learning these, I thought of them as shapes, and then I would kind of think about which notes to play using those shapes. And it sounded okay. It sounded quite nice, actually. If you put in a bit of rhythm and some vibrato and stuff, it can sound really nice. The only negative about that is sometimes you find yourself playing up and down the same scale a lot by accident, just because it's what you know. It can sound a bit scalar. One way of getting out of that is by swapping between them, because then you get the variety and it's not so bad. But this goes back to kind of what happened with Charlie Parker in jazz music. Famously, Charlie Parker was on stage and he was blowing a solo and it wasn't very good and he wasn't able to improvise very well. And the drummer, I forget who it was, took the cymbal off his stand and threw it at Charlie Parker's head. Charlie Parker went away and spent loads of time really working on his playing. And basically what he did is he just learned those scales off by heart. And this is why scales are useful. Once you know them off by heart, and the more you do this, that's why you've got to practice it again and again and again and again. eventually, it's like a miracle. I can't explain it. I just remember being really exciting when it happens. Your fingers just find the right places. Your fingers just go to these notes, and you're not even thinking about the scales anymore, and that's amazing. And Charlie Parker, there's a great quote, I can't remember it exactly, but he was like, I had to do all the hard work, and I worked hard, and I woodshedded, which is just a jazz name for practicing, woodshedded over and over, but once I had it in my brain, then I could be totally free and I could fly. And that's what this is like, really. So yeah, you've got it. So yeah, it takes a while, but it's well useful. And yeah, Karen's got it right. The reason they work together is that they're technically, it's all the same notes in a different place. And because we go up and down those scales a little bit, we always do with melody playing. Each one has a slightly different flavour, but they are all the same notes. You've got it. Let's just check. Karen's just saying, if I'm reading the chart on page 6, an Aeolian C scale would have the notes C, D, E flat, F, G and B flat. Let's just check that. Do page 6, so Aeolian. Yep, a C, a D, an E flat, an F, a G. I'm just going through it. A flat and B flat. Yeah, you've got it exactly right, Karen. Yeah, that's if you're using the Aeolian C. But when we play in the key of C major, the Aeolian that we use is actually A, isn't it? Because we've gone up through them. But yeah, you're right, for a C Aeolian. That's right, Karen. Yeah. Okay, so this is already exciting. We can take 2 scales and we can play all over the fretboard in one key. Here's another mind-blowing bit, which is also really, really empowering. And this takes a lot of thinking about, right? But if you think about those 2 shapes as belonging to the key of C, D Dorian and G Mixolydian, what if I wanted to play in another key? And I wanted to play, say, in the key of D? Well, in the key of D, I could use the E Dorian, the same shape I've got there, the green shape. Sorry, I went wrong. I'll do that again. And then I would play the A Mixolydian, so a whole step up here. And if I put those 2 together, I'd be playing in the key of D. So basically you can get other keys. We're not going to do it today because it's too much to think about. But you can get other keys by moving up and down the fretboard, which is really, really exciting. But let's stay in the key of C today. I might finish this off another time and go over the other keys because I think it'd be really good. Karen, really this diagram, I just put it in if anyone was interested, but it doesn't really apply to what we're doing today too much, but it just explains why all the different modes have their different flavours, basically. That's what, and it's easiest to think about them in relation to the natural minor and the natural major. That's all really. But don't worry about that chart too much for now. And you could apply this to all these other ones, right? You could learn that shape, and that gets you playing in the middle part of the fretboard. You could learn the Aeolian shape, which gets you playing right past up to the 13th fret. But what I would suggest is using these 2 for now, because these fit really well with everything, and they cover most of the fretboard, which is absolutely fantastic. Okay. Now, here's something that gets really, really exciting. If you want to solo in jazz music, one of the most common ways to solo in jazz music is to match these scales up with certain chords. If anyone's heard of Miles Davis and how he used to solo using modes, what he'd do is most of his songs around about the time of Kind of Blue were only a few chords, and those chords were held for ages and ages, and then he would solo using these modes. So he might play a D minor 7 and play this scale for ages and ages in different places. Then he might play a G7 and play this one for ages and ages. Again, this is like, you might, I was talking to a really, really lovely student called Anthony who was visiting the area. So he popped in to see me this morning, and I was explaining to him, because he was saying sometimes, like everyone, you forget things like I do it all the time, right? You might have to watch this video a few times to like finally get it to click. All right, if all you get for now is just playing these two notes to play the C major scale all over the fretboard, that is amazing. All right, but let me take it up a level and show you something really, really interesting. You know how in the key of C we have, when we do Kanikapila, we have these chords that we give personalities. C is the 1 chord, D minor 2, E minor 3, F is 4, G is 5, A minor is 6, and then B has that kind of unusual diminished quality. And remember, we talk about those as having personalities. The 1 chord feels at home, 2 chord melancholy, 3 chord really dark or heartbreaky, 4 chord just creates a sense of light change. The 5 chord, particularly if we play G7 rather than G, is tension. The 6 chord, again melancholy, I kind of call it the pop-tastic minor chord. And then the diminished chord, jazzy or dark. You can think about the same thing with all these scales as having matching personalities when you play up and down them. So something that jazz musicians realise sounds absolutely fantastic is matching these up to certain chords. Now we're getting really advanced now. This is just something I wanted to show you because it's really, really cool and good fun to play along with. Whenever a jazz, not all the time, but a lot of jazz musicians do this. When someone's playing a D minor 7, because a D minor 7 is built on the 2nd step in the key of D, which is D, key of C, which is D. So D minor is the 2 chord in the key of C, right? Well, D Dorian is similar. It's a minor-y sounding scale that is built on the 2 second interval in the key of C, right? So when people play a D minor, the jazz musician will tend to solo using the D Dorian scale. The G Mixolydian is built on the 5th scale degree in C, right? C, D, E, F, G. And a G7 chord, C, D, E, F, G, is the 5 chord that we play in the key of C. So when a G7 is playing, jazz musicians will often play the G Mixolydian, okay, because it just works. And it's a really nice way of varying things up. You can play the D Dorian over D minor and G Mixolydian over a G7 chord. And if I play a different backing track, again, I'm going to make all these available. I'll post it either later on or tomorrow. I'll make all of these available. If I play this backing track now, it starts with a D minor 7 followed by a G7. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to solo away and I'm going to use the Dorian over the D minor and the Mixolydian over the G7. Okay, and I'll talk you through it as I'm doing it. I'll get you to have a go in a minute as well, but it might sound something like this. Let's see if it works. D Dorian, G Mixolydian, D Dorian. Oh no, it goes to a C here, so I'm not going to do anything quite yet. 2 more measures of that. D minor 7. G Mixolydian. Did you notice that? Let me just pause that. Did you notice how it gave like a change of flavour when I went between the 2 scales? Again, because I tend to go up and down a little bit when I play melodies, and so do most people, which is amazing, right? So that gives each bit a different flavour, and this is the cool thing. Some people can even hear it without putting the chords on. Okay, so I'll play D minor, I'll play the D Dorian and G Mixolydian, and you should almost be able to like imagine those chords being played behind. See if you can. And they call that hearing the changes because you're getting two different kind of modes. Each one feels like a different flavour. So it almost sounds like, can almost imagine the D7 chord. Da-da-ba-da, you know, playing in the background, which is really great. Yeah, no, that's all right, Ted. This is what I wanted. I wanted people to ask these questions because then I can make it really, really clear. Absolutely. So Ted's just saying he's a little confused, as usual. Don't worry, Ted, that's all good. Are these scales used with a C backing track, or is the D Dorian used over a D backing track? No, that's fine. What we're doing, Ted, and for everyone, just to explain it a bit better, we're using a backing track which plays chords from the key of C. If you're into your jazz theory, it's a 2-5-1 progression, but don't sweat that. I'm playing just all chords that fit in the key of C. And then whenever the backing track is playing a D minor 7 chord, I'll play that one. Whenever it's playing a G7 chord, I'll play that one. So we're still in the key of C, but we're playing chords from the key of C and we're matching them up to here. All right, you'll see. It'll make more sense when we do the next bit in a minute, Ted. So just go with it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to play the backing track and I'm going to shout out when it's D minor and I'll shout out when it's G7. And when I say D minor, noodle about here. When I say G7, noodle about here. Okay, you can swap between the two. Remember, you haven't got to do all the notes in the scale. If you find it easier, just do the ones on the E and the A string. All right, you got this. I'll give the backing track a play and you can give it a go yourself. Let me just put it back to the start. So D minor. No, where's 10? D minor. G. G7. And then just pause here. You can play anything here if you want. I'll explain why in a sec. Give it just a second. Get ready to go again. 1, 2, 3, 4. D minor. G Mixolydian. And then anything here, I'll explain why in a sec. So this is one of the most, the reason we're doing these chords is this is one of the most common jazz progressions of all the time. It's basically the chords to Autumn Leaves and many, many other songs. The backing track's doing a D minor 7. And then a G7. Then a C major 7. Just think of that as a type of C major chord. Okay, so let's take it one step further. This isn't too bad because you guys probably know this one already because we've done it lots today and you've done it in the past. When I say to go to the C chord, I want you to do these notes here, the red ones that say C Ionian. Okay, so I'll flick it as we go because I can be in control. So D minor, and I'll shout out so you know you're on it, green. G7, I'll shout it out, orange. And when we go back to C, which is held for twice as long, you'll hit the C Ionian notes. Now, I'll give you an example again. I'm not an amazing soloist, but it will give you kind of a very rough idea. I'll do it for you. I'm going to take this off temporarily just because I can't control it whilst playing. But have a listen to this. See if you can see what I'm doing. D minor. G Mixolydian. And now C major. Stay on that. D Dorian. G Mixolydian. Back to C major. And so on and so forth. So you'll notice that you get a different flavour on each. Again, I'm going to do one more thing, a bit maverick. I'll just play some solos. I won't even play the chords in the background. And you should almost be able to hear the chord changes. D minor. G Mixolydian. C major. Isn't that really nice? Rebecca, it's like you read my mind because I was going to say that. You really hear that resolution, don't you, when you go back to C? Even when I'm just playing it without the backing track, I'll do it again. D minor. G Mixolydian. C major. I forgot to hold my uke up so you can see what I was doing. I'm so sorry, I didn't realise. But you can hear that kind of that release of the tension when it goes to the one chord. So that's a 2-5-1 progression. Right, now you guys are going to have a go whether you like it or not. I can control the sheet, so I'll keep them up on screen so you can follow. All right, so you haven't got to flip the pages yourself. So when I say D minor, play that. When I say G7, play that. And when I say C major, play that. All right, let's have a go. We're going to start with D minor 7, so I'll put this one up. I'm just going to quickly check on a couple of questions. So Rebecca's saying, even though we change the mode we're playing in, the backing track stays in the key of C. Yeah, exactly right. So everything that we're doing today, pretty much, Rebecca, is in the key of C. So everything we're doing is in the key of C. This wouldn't work over something in the key of G. We could still use the same principles, but we'd have to shift everything about. All right. No worries, Karen. It happens to me all the time. Sometimes I just go and it's like I hit overload. But you can always check back in. Absolutely. All right, let's have a go. I'll play the backing track. You guys are going to be jazz musicians now. Yeah, harness your inner Miles Davis, and let's have a go. Okay. D minor. G Mixolydian. And now C major, the red dots. We're going to stay on these a little while now. Get ready to change. D minor, hit those green dots. G Mixolydian, hit the orange dots. Back to the red dots, C Ionian. We'll do that one more time. Stay on C for a sec. Here we go. D Dorian, green dots. G Mixolydian. And then back to C Ionian. is your solo. Good. Okay, cool. So you can see hopefully how empowering this can be, and it allows you to play all over the fretboard, and it gives you a different flavour of different chords and putting these together, which is really nice. Now, I'm going to tell you one more bit of information, but Karen's made me realise that I've probably been talking for a long time, and it's about time to finish anyway. But I do, if anyone wants to stick with it, I'm going to show you one more cool thing. But if this is too much, don't worry, you can always come back to this later on. But this is, if anything, it's kind of reassuring. So you know how I said with the C Ionian, you play that over the 1 chord, because it's the 1 in the key of C. And the D Dorian you play over the 2 chord, D minor. And the G Mixolydian you play over the 5 chord, G7. Well, first of all, if you want to keep things really simple, because they all contain the same notes, you could play through those in any order. It's nicer when you match them with the chords, but it doesn't really matter. It's really empowering. You can play those on any song that's in the key of C all the way through, and it will sound fantastic. All right, that's the first empowering thing. The next empowering thing is jazz musicians are lazy, believe it or not, because they want to play loads of notes really quickly and they don't want to have to remember 7 scales. So actually, jazz musicians mostly only use the Dorian mode, the Mixolydian mode, and the Ionian mode. Okay, and what they'll do is anytime they play a minor chord, you'll use the Dorian shape, because that's kind of, think of that as your like minor-y shape. Anytime it's a dominant chord, which is only once in a key, because there's only 1 dominant chord in the key of C, it's G7, you play that one. And any type of major-y chord, just like a C or an F, for instance, in the key of C, you would tend to just use the Ionian. Now, I'll give you a really cool example of that, and it takes a bit of thinking about. Again, this is, some of you, like, if your brains go kaput, I don't mind and I'm not offended, and it's my fault for going on a bit too much, all right? But again, you can revisit this later on because it's really quite neat. Say I had this progression, E minor 7, A7, D minor 7, G7, C. So we've got more chords now to think about. E minor 7, and you could just, you don't worry about 7s, just think about it as E minor, A7, D minor, G7 and C. This is a really common chord combination in pop music and jazz music. It's really lovely. It sounds like this. Now that's quite getting into quite a complex progression, is it? And you think, oh, what do I play there? Well, you might think that when you're playing the E chord, you play the E Phrygian, but you don't, because that's a different kind of flavour of scale. When you play the E minor 7, you play, and this takes you a bit of getting your head round, the E Dorian. The E Dorian is this shape, this exact shape, but moved up 2 frets, so starting from E. So the E Dorian will look like this. 4th fret, then the big gap to the 6th, little gap to 7, the 5th fret, up to the 7, the 4th, the 5th, and the 7th. You haven't got to remember that, don't worry too much. But that's just the D Dorian, moved up 2 frets. So now that becomes the E Dorian. Well, what would you play over A7? A7's a type of dominant chord. Any chord that just has a 7 without a major or minor in front of it is a dominant chord. And we know that we play this shape over dominant chords. So you would play the A Mixolydian, which is exactly the same as a G Mixolydian, 2 frets higher. So instead of doing this, where are we? Here we go. Instead of doing the G one, you play exactly the same shape, 2 frets higher. Okay, that's 9 to 11, 9 to 10 to 12, 9 to 10 to 12. Okay, so basically you don't have to know all 7 scales. Minor lessons, minor chords, you use the Dorian and then just figure it out, you know, if it's E Dorian, you move it up. Dominant chords, you use a Mixolydian. If it's an A7, move it up. A major chords, you use the Ionian. And this, again, this is quite epic to take in and really awkward. But it sounds really, really lovely, okay? What I'm going to do is I'll show you how you can do it. I'm going to do another chord progression. And again, I'll post these on Facebook. This time it's going to have an extra chord in it. It's going to have an E minor 7 and an A7. Let me see if I can find it. It should sound something like this. Okay, let me just take this away for a second. So this is E minor 7, then an A7, then a D minor 7, G7, and then a C major 7. Okay, what I'm going to do is I'll play the scales that I would play over that, and I'll play them literally as scales. All right, so I'm going to play E Dorian for the E minor, then A Mixolydian for the A7, D Dorian for the D minor 7, G Mixolydian for the G7, and then C major 7 at the end to finish off. And it should, it should sound quite nice. Let's see if it works. I'll give it my best shot. Let's have a listen. So I'm going to do the E Dorian over E minor. Then I'm going to do the A Mixolydian. Then I'm going to do D Dorian. And then I'm going to do C Mixolydian. Sorry, I got lost then. I'm going to do that again. I got them in the wrong order. You know how some of your brains have got overloaded? Mine has as well. I can do that again. I don't think I held them for long enough. E minor, E Dorian. A Mixolydian. D Dorian. G Mixolydian. C Ionian. Okay. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to make that a little bit more freeform, just to show you how it can sound smooth, hopefully. So on and so forth. So just free forming it a bit there. So that's kind of taking things up a level. But you can see that I'm just using Dorian modes, the Mixolydian modes and the Ionian modes. And that's kind of powerful in itself, which is really, really nice. I won't do that now because we're at 5 o'clock and we're running out of time a bit, and I don't know if anyone else's brain's melting. Mine is a little bit, even just trying to explain this stuff. So we'll probably leave it around about there, but I'll take some questions and everything. So Rebecca was just saying, is player modes a jazz thing, or do other styles of music match the flavour of modes? Great question, Rebecca. That's a really, really great question. It really depends on the player. Honestly, most rock music and pop music uses pentatonic scales when people solo because it's easier, and that's just how people have learned. Like, if you think about like Ed Sheeran and Taylor Swift, bear in mind I love this stuff. Chapel Roan is like one of my favourite artists, and she does these kind of 4-chord songs, and it's totally cool, right? But a lot of modern music is much less sophisticated than it used to be. If you think of like songs of Jerome Kern that Ella Fitzgerald used to sing, and Gershwin and Cole Porter and stuff, there's a lot more going on. It's a lot more sophisticated, and the soloists are also more sophisticated. Well, in modern pop music, again, our soloists have become less sophisticated. So people have just learnt to play by ear and play pentatonics because that's what they hear, and it's kind of, I don't want to say dumbed down because it's not, it's just a different style, but definitely there's less and less people doing this stuff today. But you can use this over pop music. So if you ever see someone like Jake Shimabukuro, James Hill will probably do this a bit, Corey Fujimoto, you know, people who like to noodle, a lot of them will use this to get all over the fretboard, basically. Now you can apply the same thing to a pop song. So you know that progression I did at the start. Let me just get the sheets up again, just to explain. I did like a poppy. Oh, wrong ones. I did like a poppy progression at the start, didn't I? C, G, A minor, F. Well, you could, and it would sound absolutely lovely. In fact, we'll try it in a sec. You could just do what we just did and play these randomize it a bit because it's different chords. But you could just play all these dots here and the C Ionian just as a way of getting you about the fretboard and hitting the notes all over the place. If you want it to kind of get more sophisticated and you want to go super sophisticated, what you do is play C Ionian over the C chord, G Mixolydian over the G chord, and then you play A minor Dorian, so this shape but way up at A, over the A minor chord. And then over F, you could play the F Lydian, but like I say, most players would just play the F Ionian. So like, most people would just play the C Ionian over that one. All right, so I'll try that so you can see it. So I'm going to play the Ionian, then I'm going to play the Mixolydian, and then I'm going to play the A minor Dorian, just so you can hear it. Don't worry about copying it for now. And then I'll play the C Ionian to finish on the F chord. I'll show you what I mean. And then I'll just mix it up so you can see how it works mixed up as well. Let me just bring that in. So chords to this one. C, I think. G. So I'm going to play C Ionian, G Mixolydian, A minor Dorian, and then C Ionian, C Ionian, G Mixolydian, A minor Dorian, C Ionian. So notice that that's all having a different flavour, which is quite nice. But notice it's still got a little bit, it doesn't sound totally relaxed. But if I just kind of freeform it and just go into those rough areas, it will sound really, really sweet. Hopefully, let's have a go at that. So this, still using those rough ones, but I'm going to add in some extra notes. Oh, so on. I was just enjoying myself there, needling away. It's really kind of relaxing to do. So you can play it over pop stuff, just kind of really just go for it and just think about it as like areas to play on the fretboard. And it's really nice because you get a different feel. And you can get some really nice flurries of notes really quickly. For instance, one of my favourite things to do is kind of little repeated notes, something like... Or sometimes I might even go from a G note. That sounds really nice. I'll play it over the backing track. Obviously I wouldn't do it over and over, but it gives you an idea. Now the trouble is, that's really awkward to do, isn't it? Because I'm having to go way up here. But when you get used to these notes, you'll know that these notes are also here. So now I can go, whoops. Which makes sense for my fingers. And so on and so forth. So sometimes like these knowing these modes will allow you to be able to do things a lot more smoothly, and it will kind of break you away from doing the same few things over and over. Like when I first started to learn to solo, I did a lot of playing just up the scale. And like a lot of my solos just sounded like they were just going up and down scales, which is a kind of an easy thing to fall into a little bit. So this kind of at least gets you all over the fretboard with different little mini melodies and stuff, which is really, really nice. Last thing to remember, just before I wrap up, and I've gone on for way too long. I always do this on a Wednesday. Just remember that just knowing the notes from a solo is just one thing. There's a lot more to soloing than just notes. You've got to think about rhythm and groove and articulation, ornamentation, all that stuff. There is a live lesson if you go into my archive, where I go over all that stuff in detail. I think it's called How to Play. There's one that's called How to Play Good, or How to Sound Good. It sounds a bit like a weird title, but it works. And there's another one which is on further soloing, and that goes into more of those details as well. And perhaps if anyone enjoyed this soloing lesson, I might do more about that, the technical things like slides, vibrato, hammer-ons, pull-offs, and thinking about things like groove and timing and stuff like that as well. I think we might have a look at that at some point as well. But I'll leave it there for today because my brain's gone to mush, and I'm sure some of yours have as well. Remember, guys, you can email me whenever you want, matt@theukroom.com. My members have got my preferential email as well, which you can ping over a question anytime. If I don't answer it right away, it's just because I've been I might be away with like the Spain thing or whatever, but I'll always get back to you eventually, even if it's in a live lesson like Shell today. Sorry, Shell, I've been meaning to reply to that one for a couple of days. Don't be overwhelmed by this stuff. There's a lot to think about here. If you just think about it as two shapes to be able to play in the key of C all over the fretboard, that's really empowering when you think about how many songs we play in the key of C. So all sorts of good stuff, hopefully, for you to take away. That's good. At first I read that as it's like being thrown in the deep end of a pool and drowning, which was a bit terrifying. And then I realised you said, I'm not drowning. So whew, that makes me feel a bit better. Thanks, Wayne. Cool. I'm going to be back something a lot lighter in 2 weeks' time. So if anyone found that a bit heavy, we're going to do strumming, but simple things to make your strumming sound really, really gorgeous, basically. People get really way too stressed out with strum patterns and thinking about ups and downs. So I'm going to show you a way of kind of getting out of that habit and thinking about how to vary things within a song. How to just do, how sometimes the most simplest things sound most gorgeous. So we'll look at that in a lot of detail. That's going to be 2 weeks' time. Don't forget, I'll be back on Monday for another Melodic Mondays. We're going to do a really lovely melody, which is Out on the Ocean, which I'm really, really excited about. Gorgeous, gorgeous melody. And then there's going to be a bit of a gap because I'm off to Spain, but we'll be back for the live lesson the week after and back for Kanikapila Mondays after that. If you're ever not quite sure what's happening when, best thing is just go to the website, mattsteadukulele.com. Click on live lessons and that'll tell you when the next Melodic Monday is, when the next Kanikapila is, and when the next fortnightly workshop is. If you sign up to my mailing list every Friday, I'll send you a mail out almost without fail telling you what's happening the week after and what's happening over the next few days. So it's worth signing up to that if you want. And I'm so dedicated to that I actually sent out a mail out at about 1 o'clock in the morning on the Friday, because it's like I just missed the Friday. I was 1 hour into Saturday, but it's like going to do it. So check that out as well. And of course there's the Facebook page where Karen does a brilliant list of events, what's coming up as well. So have a look on there if you're not sure. So yeah. Don't worry, Ted, I'll catch you, don't worry. Remember what I said on the cruise, Ted, but this applies to everyone. Don't worry if you don't get everything in the lessons. If you can just take 1 or 2 tips away each time, that would be fantastic. All right, so don't worry if you don't get everything. Particularly when I was learning jazz stuff, like jazz soloing and jazz chords and stuff, I kind of found it really, really overwhelming. It was just like there was almost too much. But what I did is I just watched things again and again. I can't tell you there's a scale in jazz music called the whole half scale, and it's kind of simple, but how you apply it is really tricky to understand. And I must have watched the same video on this guy explaining it about 17 times. And I think at around about the 16th time I watched it, I got it. So do stick with it. You'll get there, absolutely. All right, guys. Well, I shall love you and leave you. Hopefully I'll see some of you on Monday for the Melodic Mondays. If not, I'll catch up when I'm back on the other side of Spain. And if anyone wants to come to Spain with me, you can do. There's still one place left, so get in touch. Take care, everyone. Much love, and see you next time.